this one. So I think by this time all of you might have already accepted the invitation and able to see this view. So basically like at a high level, so JIRA is a platform where you can track all your tasks or issues or even bugs, right? So there's slight difference with respect to each of these nomenclature. So I think if you just Google around the agile process itself, so typically it's divided into something called sprint cycle. So what that denotes is, so let's say like you wanted to closely monitor set of tasks that you want to take up for a specified period. Let's say so typical ones it would be a two sprint cycle. So within that 2 weeks, which is termed as a single sprint, so you specify what are the activities you're going to take up for that duration and try to break it into atomic tasks and make sure that is completed within that sprint. So that is the overall objective of that sprint cycle. So yeah, I think that's how it is defined. So and there are like how do you specify those things? Probably like that will come with experience, right? So probably like I think by this time. So if I ask you guys about some of the uh, trivial front end or back end features, you guys should at least have a rough estimate of how much time it would take to complete that. So again, like same thing happens here. So if there is like a major work involved, so we have something called epic. So epic is nothing but it's like a high level feature. Let's say like you want to integrate a feature for data analytics, right? So that can be classified as an epic, meaning it can run for multiple sprint cycles. Then we will create the task or stories for the particular, let's say let's say like for Shoonya, our sprint cycle is like 1 week. So we pick up the task that we can make sure like it's completed under for that data analytics epic, and then we will tag to that. So at least like is the objective of Jira board agile process that does it make some sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean it's not a complicated thing, but I think once you start working on the actual tickets or bugs, like I think it's easier to just quickly understand the flow and other things. But yeah, I think most of the projects nowadays follow this agile process. So, so if the timelines are kind of strict, so we will try to shorten the sprint cycle duration. So that's why like typically it's for 2 weeks, but for Shunya we have kept it as 1 week at least to at least like track the activities more closely. But yeah, it can even go until like I think 6 to 7 weeks it can happen. So if you see like bigger product companies like Oracle and all, right? So they're I mean for them like even if they releasing a small feature, they have to completely make sure it's completely bug free, right? So they have longer sprint cycles. That way they'll have enough time to complete even like a small task with minimal bugs. But for us, like it's kind of like incremental updates, right? So it's easier for us to track the activities more closer. So that's the reason for having shorter sprint. So as I mentioned earlier, so if you go to this one, so we can see three boards created for Shunya. So this is just like a kind of view you can just think of it. So if you just go to the first one, so this board actually gives that active sprint thing. So as I mentioned, right? So it starts on Monday and ends by Friday. So this way, like it says 0 days are remaining. So it's almost like ending by midnight. So if you see like these are the tasks that were assigned for this sprint and some of them. So just to at least like quickly go through that various status here. So what we typically do is, let's say like a bigger project like Shune comes in. So we just put in all the relevant things as tasks and just keep it under backlog, meaning like it has to be done. So all those things stay in to do thing. And let's say as we get start getting the priority list, so we'll move it into selected for development. And obviously, like as the developers pick that corresponding task or issues, so that will be moved to in progress. And once it's deployed to production and it's verified by the tester, so later like it can be moved to done status. So yeah, so that was the small discussion we had in um, the previous call, right? So what is the procedure for moving a ticket from in progress to done? So the set of activities involved would be merging all your code from your feature to dev to master, and deploying that. And then let's go. So once you have deployed it, so you will assign that particular task or bug to the tester or who are helping with the testing. And then they verify the functionality in production, and then they give a go ahead to be moved to closure. That's when it gets moved to done status. So is the status clear?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think yeah, so that's pretty much about this one. And so I was talking about the Epic, right? So if it is spanning across multiple sprint, so we create it as an Epic, and there can be stories. Let's say like so it's like just chunking for or grouping it, right? So you can just have like so if you just yeah, just take I mean Google for some of the example, you will get a very good example. So I'm just saying with respect to Shoonya, right? So an sample epic could be like uh, create data analytics things for the annotator managers, annotation managers, right? So this can be created in epic. Let's say like it's spawning across uh, sprint 1, 2, and 3. So basically like this we are equating into 3 weeks, right? So in sprint 1, so let's say we can take up some of the stories. So stories, it might be like let's say like get annotators work progress. So in a perfect agile world, so there is something called story points associated with it. So for a given sprint, right? So the maximum it can go as 8. So it's kind of like a proportional to the amount of time it takes. So there's like so we cannot we don't usually talk in number of hours. Rather, it's something called story points. So how much a particular task take to complete. So let's say if I just give it a one score of 1, so it might be something like very minor change. Let's say like it could be like a query update or whatever it is, right? But if it's something like minor code change, but which involves like multiple testing something, so you can assign a score of 3, something like that. But so we thought this might be a slightly overhead, which might not be very much required, and we wanted to at least follow the process, but don't want to keep it as a overhead. That's why we are not following this story point structure. But yeah, but that's just for your general information. Okay, so coming back to the story, right? So let's say like I've created one story. Sorry, yeah. So okay. Just to avoid confusion, I've just put it as sprint. And in sprint 1, I'm taking stories. So these are the stories. Okay, so okay, so we can still break it down the story into a task. So let's say like it involves a backend change, right? Backend change to capture, let's say time frames of the annotation. So this could be one story, and sorry, task. Second task might be front end change, and third could be like if it involves like maybe like integration testing or whatever it is, right? So we can just create a new task around it. Integration testing, right? So let's say within a task, if you want to further subdivide that, so you can create something called subtask. So this could be something like create API. The other thing could be like maybe some code change to accommodate something, right? Something, right? So it can go in this order. So first, like for the lengthier one, you create an epic. Under that, you can create multiple stories, and under story, you can create multiple tasks, and you can create subtask under that. So this is all for the logical grouping and closely connecting it with the if you see the product teams, I mean in bigger companies, right? So there could be multiple teams involved. So there might be dependencies within the teams. So they're like these things become critical because they will assign a priority for each of these things, and there's a way to link the dependencies. Let's say like I'll just quickly show you. Let's say for this one, right? Let's say like I want to add a dependency. So it says this is blocked by this change, right? So meaning like for this to go through, so this task have to be completed. So these type of linkings is possible. And also like if you want to label it, so there are some labeling concept components. So I think for Shoonya, like we have just kept it minimal, like front end, back end, schema, testing, and design. But yeah, obviously, like we can just add more if that's useful for us. But yeah, so we wanted to follow Agile, but with minimal overhead. So that's the intention of, I mean, for our processes. Uh, does it make some sense, guys? Just for you to get started.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Okay. So what we do typically do during, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, right? So usually like for us, so from the annotation managers, we'll get all these tasks, something like this, right? Then like Ishwinder and Aparna can help in prioritizing this. So then we decide, okay, so we'll take the top priority ones for that task. Then we sit and discuss like what are the things required to achieve this request, right? What are the changes involved in that? So that's way like we can, so it comes with experience, right? So whether an epic is required or with like a simple change. So once you know the code, code bases, so we'll get this overall picture, right? Where what kind of changes are required and how big could be the changes. So I think at least like within a month, I think you guys would be more comfortable with all these processes. So at least I guess you know like how the requirements are coming in, who decides the priority, and how we are taking up task for that sprint. So in Shoonya, like we made sure all the annotator feedback takes the topmost priority because they are the end users of this tool. And then like next level is the annotation managers, and then like the product team and the developers. So even if we build some high class features and if the annotators are not using it, it defeats the purpose, right? So that's why like we have kept in a reverse order, at least for Shoonya. Uh, any other question, guys? Yeah, so just coming back to this board, right? So yeah, so this is the sprint board. So if you just go to Shoonya board and just click on active sprint, so it will show like if I checked yesterday, it might be showing 1 day remaining, right? So once everything is done, so what we do is like we complete the sprint. So that activity usually happens on the next start of the next sprint, right? So we close the sprint, and then whatever is pending, that automatically gets carried over to the next sprint. But meanwhile, if we need to move some things in or change the priority, or if we need to bring in some high priority things, what we do is we can just move it from backlog to here and update the respective members on the priority change. But as a good practice, it's better to avoid context switching, because like for developers, let's say like they are working on one thing, and immediately if you come with the next one, it becomes harder for the developers to catch up. So that's why like we make sure this sprint, at least like in the middle of the sprint, like the tasks are not reprioritized. And then just coming quickly to the bugs. So always the bugs takes the topmost priority, because like you have released something, there's an issue with the implementation. So that always takes a priority on top of the other tasks. So just for creation, it's straightforward. So you just click on this create. You select the project, you select what the things. So I told you about the epic, story, and task, right? So you can just create any of them, and you can create a one-liner summary, add a description, and you can attach a priority, and then probably like you can just assign it to the respective member. So I think yeah, so those things are easier. But let's say like for some of the dependencies, right? So let's say like I had this one. So if I want to create a subtask, I can create it after going in here. Also, if I have to link it with something, let's say like either like if I want to change the, let's say like it was a feature, and later realize that it was a bug. So I can even do a move to move it across a different type. So it could be like a task, and let's say like you want to make it as a bug. So all those simple things are already, I mean, already all those options are already ported. So this is the sprint view. And at any point, if you're interested in seeing like what are the things in backlog, there's a backlog view as well. So this is the current sprint. So which we saw that detailed view earlier, right? So this is for the next sprint. So it starts on 23rd and ends on 30th. So the sprint is already created, so that like it becomes easier, right? So some new task comes in to 2, so we can move some of the things out of 2 to 3. So that way, like the creation of sprint becomes easier. So usually, like we create 2 or 3 sprints upfront, so like it's easier to toggle the tasks back and forth, rather than having everything in backlog and then picking every time during the start of the sprint. So for this view, so you can just see like whatever it's highlighted here. So they are the epics that these stats are linked with. So there was a epic created for this annotation review. So you can see that's I mean grouped under the parent, right? So this is 74, and this was grouped under 72, which is an epic. So this symbol indicates a epic. So you can so it details about the entire thing, and then you can see the set of stories or task under that. Yeah, so the other couple of boards are, one is for bugs. So this is, as I mentioned, like a special view is obviously required because it takes the priority, right? Also, like we are early in the project, so it becomes very important to make sure all the bugs are closed sooner. So that's why like this board is created, which contains a consolidated view on all the bugs. So whenever you see this, yeah, what do you see? Like some red circle, right? Oh, just an indicator of non-veg thing. But yeah, there's the indicator for a bug. So yeah, that's about the bug view. And if you just come to, so there's an alternate view which is called Kanban. So in Kanban, like it's kind of similar to a sprint, but rather than focusing on a particular sprint, let's say like some of the things might not be very much relatable to sprint cycles, right? So they can use this Kanban board so that like you track only with respect to the status updates. So when I say status, these are the statuses, right? Backlog, selector for. So this doesn't take the sprint into account. So at least for discussion for the daily stand-up meeting, this is pretty useful. Because let's say like somebody is unblocked on one of the tasks for that sprint. So you can just quickly move some of the things from here to in progress. Though it's in a different a sprint, it will still show in this Kanban board. Kanban board. So is the distinction clear, guys? When we use the sprint board and the Kanban board? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So any other high level question, guys? And then coming to the daily stand-ups, right? So we typically have a shorter call in mostly in the morning times. So for Shoonya, we have decided it's between 9 and 9:15. So we quickly discuss what are the progress made for a particular day, and is there any blocker or dependency. So yeah, so we usually try to keep it short. So each of the members should not take more than a minute. So that should be the intention. So if something requires like a detailed discussion, maybe we can just do it after the stand-up meeting. So that's how usually that is structured. So usually for the stand-up meetings, right? So I prefer taking this Kanban board view so that like if somebody is blocked on some of the things, at least they can start working on some of the things that's already available in the next sprint. So once like they're unblocked, they can continue working on this current sprint. This gives like a consolidated view. And we can just pick a member and we can just see like what are the things. So that's how we discuss in the stand-up meeting. So we just go one by one. Once she is done, and we go to the next person and next person. Yeah, that way it becomes cleaner to identify the things that they are working on. And also, I forgot to mention about the priority. So the order in which it is placed, right? So that is critical to specify the priority. So when somebody sees like that, so it means that 70, the task 73 takes a higher priority than 80. So this order is also important. Yeah, there's a separate field for priority. Let's say like both are P2s, right? So then how do you decide what to pick first? So this ordering matters there. Cool. So I think that's pretty much from respect to, I mean, with respect to JIRA and Agile process. But yeah, I think you guys will get a good hold on it as we progress through next couple of sprints. But meanwhile, do you have any quick questions for now?
No.
Okay, cool then. Yeah, have fun, guys. So enjoy your weekend. So let's catch up on Monday. Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.